Welcome to the DEVAC Infrastructure Summit 2024, the premier event for industry leaders, innovators, and visionaries shaping the future of African infrastructure. Let's build the future together.
As we ask ourselves a simple question, how do we support Africa's key infrastructure sector? How do we fix the right things? It is in government and what they call it, and in bureaucratic nature, that when something goes wrong, we create new rules.
With collective determination and strategic partnerships, we are poised to unlock the full potential of our region.
For us to develop sustainable infrastructure, we need to incorporate all the views from the private sector, public sector, as well as the financing side of things, so that what we build is actually a well thought out piece of infrastructure.
So without good infrastructure, solid, reliable, predictable infrastructure, you do not have an incentive for foreign direct investment. So I think the discussions we had today were extremely essential, powerful, and you had the right mixture of speakers.
When an investor invests in a country, it wants to know what's the rules, what is the regulations, it wants to sign a contract. But in the contract itself, typically for long-term contracts, you have clauses in there that you make provision for when there's changes in policy and law and how that contract can then be renegotiated.
And you know, they say sometimes if you're asking to be included, it's also an issue because you should be part of the table from the get-go. And I think the DEVAC Summit is giving us that opportunity to be at the table right from the get-go.
Forums like these remain relevant as they provide opportunities for the sharing of innovative solutions to enable engineers to exploit the natural resources of the continent.
These are just some of the resources that we have, that by managing better and creating economic value, we are able to actually become more carbon neutral.
So there, an inland port at Nairobi works brilliantly, because now suddenly you use the corridor from Mombasa to Nairobi to bring your main volumes. You distribute via road or rail from that point. So that the distribution opportunity for an inland port, as well as collecting volumes for export, works very nicely.
We're not just building infrastructure, we're defining a future where progress and the sustainability of the planet go hand in hand.
That when we as government and when we as industry are looking at these objectives, we are thinking of the entire life cycle of that project.
And we appreciate that the country needs to transition. And the term is transition. We are not saying the country must change, must switch. We are saying the country must gradually transition, so nothing must stop for something else to happen. But it's a gradual process.
Has to do with trying to help so that people are not spending money on unnecessary things for safety at workplace.
Furthermore, we pledge our support to the Gauteng's green initiatives aimed at reducing environmental impact through sustainable practices such as renewable energy adoption and eco-friendly transport technologies.
This is probably my third year, I think, that I've attended the conference, and every year it has grown in terms of the participation, the engagement, because you have different participation. So it's either the financiers, the lawyers, government, and different participants, and you can see the dynamic discussion that is being had.
Having the interest of the public sector in mind, we sort of like need to build trust between us, because it will take both of us, both private and public sector, to solve infrastructure challenges.
What did you call us? Paper engineers? Paper administrators. He's insulted you, Shavla. You're going to reply at some point in time. But how do we rapidly create this know-how and skills and bring it into the efficiency of the public sector, so that it then frees us from being paper engineers? Decisions can be made quickly.
Infrastructure is important for that person to have dignity, as well as for the creation of jobs and investment. So I think we had the right mixture of speakers, we had the right stakeholders, and it had a good continental flavor about it.
Or as a government, instead of thinking of putting there the solution that you think is best, it's also quite interesting to go to the market, to the private sector, and try to explain your problem instead of thinking that you have the solution from where you come.
One cannot run away from the fact that technology is here and it's going to be used as an instrument to take us to the next level of delivering infrastructure that is affordable but also sustainable from an environmental point of view.
You identify where the skills are and you bring that in. But what's important is, after you bring that skills into the country, it's developing those skills locally.
I think one of the most, I'd rather say exciting topics in infrastructure development is the ability to ensure that the health and safety provisions or health and safety legislation is upheld. The reason is because we build infrastructure for human beings, and therefore the product has to be in a position that a person can be safe even for the end user, because we're not trying to develop something that will be detrimental or have a bad impact.
Take advantage of the opportunity and say, okay, let's enable this green hydrogen project, but let's make this water project so big that it doesn't only supply the green hydrogen plant, it also then supplies the communities around the plant.
Understanding what the issues are, understanding where the gaps are in the funding structure or the process, understanding the different role players and who brings what to the table. So all of those components, to have that in one place is quite rare, and this is one of the opportunities this event presents.
Interested and excited about how it came through, and it's around collaboration. I mean, we need to stop working in silos. Everything that's happening currently calls for those silos to be broken.
One, get to a point where we've got stability at political leadership and ensure alignment in policy. In other words, empower institutions that are legislatively mandated to give these approvals.
So there needs to be collaboration between project developers, between financiers, and between the public sector, being the government. So there is greater realization of that.
If structured correctly and procured correctly, and with the right sort of transparency and procurement mechanisms in place, Triple Ps can solve some of the big key challenges, that we are facing, as a continent in general.
That are being put together, and a lot of initiatives that the companies around South Africa, private, that are trying to assist the government in closing the gap on infrastructure challenges.
Yes, it's good that we speak in collaboration, but none of us have really touched on exactly how do we go about collaborating. What's that thread?
Business people sitting here today, where do you think our low-hanging fruit would be in terms of infrastructure and making it sustainable?
In skills development is we have graduates that are engineers, but workplace readiness is not there. So they're missing it of the theory, but then getting into a practical situation, not being able to handle that.
If government see a project that is backed up or supported by those DFIs, they tend to support them because of the long-term relationship and trust relationship that they've built over the years.
So infrastructure in general is a public good. Now, if you think of it in economic terms, what does a public good mean? It's non-exclusive. You can't exclude anybody. And it's something where you need some sort of internally generated revenue to keep going.
Sustainable infrastructure ensures that the needs of the present are met, but without compromising the ability for the future generations to meet their needs as well.
The biggest problem that investors have is uncertainty, and it's the uncertainty in policy. They will say, we don't know what is South Africa trying to do, and we don't understand how is legislation going to protect me as an investor investing in this infrastructure program.
Quality is shortcut to save on cost, and in the end it costs more. And it doesn't necessarily have to have a monetary cost, but it will also have a social impact. And we really need to start working together to do better for our people.
We behave sometimes carelessly
sometimes we don't think twice about some of the things that we do in terms of switching on an aircon, leaving lights on when we depart, the premises. That's where automation then assists where humans fall short.
To see how we can collaborate and work together to build a better South Africa. I think we're all hopeful that we want a South Africa that works, we want a South Africa that grows, and we want a South Africa that sustainably and consistently grows.
This is not a certainty. It's about understanding what the issues are, understanding where the gaps are in the funding structure or the process, understanding the different role players and who brings what to the table. So all of those components, to have that in one place is quite rare, and this is one of the opportunities this event presents. What you're missing out is having all the parties in one venue that you can interact with and you can debate.
Harnessing the power of collaboration between public and private sector partnerships unlocks even faster infrastructure delivery.
I feel pity for someone who has not turned up for this summit and also is going to miss tomorrow because of the deliberations and the level of engagement that we are taking place in this summit.
It's a worthwhile conference for anyone to attend.
There is that fear, and that fear is because there's just no proper policy in place to make it transparent for everyone to know how to invest and that they will get the return on the investment.
I was here last year for the 2023 session, here 2024.
It was a pleasure for me joining this DEVAC 2024.
If you are not here this year,
The DEVAC Infrastructure Summit 2025.
See you next year, the DEVAC Infrastructure Summit
2025.
Don't miss out.
We cannot wait as Westgrow and City of Cape Town as well.
Don't miss out.
you better be here next year.
Don't miss out.